Restored EVAP exemption for all cooperative agriculture, electric, credit, and multipurpose and other provided by the share capital of member. Those exist 500,000 15 pesos. In the VAT expense cooperative, the VAT exemption for the cooperative restoration is exemption applied to cooperate in various sectors including agriculture, electric, credit, multipurpose, and others. To qualify for the in VAT exemption, each member of the cooperative had to meet a specific condition. They share the capital of each member should not exist in the in this in 5,015 pesos. This limit aimed to ensure that the exemption of primarily benefited. The second is expanded the coverage of the simple process by including rolling and roasting, effectively narrowing the tax base of the food products. The simplified process refers to the tax system that simplifies the compliance and requirement for a certain types of goods or services. By expanding the coverage of simplified process, the aim was to streamline the tax application to specific food and products. The inclusion of rolling and roasting is the expansion is simplified the process, including the inclusion of rolling and roasting method. This meant that the food products prepared using these methods will fall under the simplified tax process, potentially resulting in reduced compliance and requirement of tax application. By narrowing the tax base, including the rolling and roasting method, they effectively narrow the tax base for food products. This means that narrow range of food products will be subjected to a certain tax obligation. This potentially simplified the tax appliance for the business involved in good preparation. So, in objective expanding the coverage, to simplify the process and narrowing the tax base for food products was likely simplified by the tax compliance and reduce the administrative burden for business and food industry. These measures aim to create a more efficient and equitable tax system for food-related businesses. The number 3 is the expand coverage of the term original state, including the molasses. This expansion aimed to clarify the tax treatment. The molasses and ensure consistency is the tax system. The importation of meat sales and of importation of coal and natural gas is whatever form or state. The education services rendered by the private education institution duly aggregated by the Convention on Higher Education (CHED). The house and lot and other residential dwelling value of 51 million and below, subject to adjust using the Consumer Price Index (CPI). The less residential units with monthly rental per unit for more than 58,000 subject adjustment using CPI. The sale and importation during the or public or books and any newspaper. The Philippine stock is mid-1990s was one of the best world, and his vision of the Philippines in 2000 that lead the country into new industrial country in the world. So in the importation of meat and coal and natural gas, this importation was of meat was as well as sale and importation of coal and natural gas is any form or state were exempted from certain taxes. These exemptions aim to support the importation and ability to these essential commodities. Educational service by the private institution is provided by the private educational institution according by the Convention of Higher Education (CHED), were exempted from the taxes. This exempted aim to support the development and accessibility to quality education in the private sector. House and lot and residential dwelling is the value of 51 million pesos and below were subjected to tax exemption. The threshold value could be adjusted using the Consumer Price Index. This exemption aimed to support the affordable housing and home ownership. The least original unit with the monthly rental per unit not exceeding 58,000 pesos was also subjected to the tax exemption. Similar to the previous point, the threshold could adjust using CPI. This extension aimed to support affordable rental housing. The sale of importation, printing and publication books and newspaper, the sale, partition or public publication. In the time of President Joseph E. Pop Estrada in 1998 to 2001, he was the first president who had been a famous film actor. It was too short to consist any changes in the tax system. So, during Joseph Estrada presidency from 1998 to 2001, he became the first president of the Philippines who have background as a famous film actor. However, due to the relatively short duration of his presidency, there were no significant changes made by the tax system during his tenure. President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, she undertook the increased government spending without adjusting the tax collection. The large deficiency from 2002 to 2004 and 4.5% of the economic growth on 2005 was expanded by added tax, EVAT, was signed into law. So during Gloria Macapagal Arroyo's presidency, several economic development and tax rate events took place. The increase of government spending without the tax collection, implemented by increasing the government spending without making corresponding adjustment to tax collection. This resulted the large deficit during the year 2000 to 2004. The government faced significant budget deficit during the mentioned period. This indicates that the government expected your existing revenue, leading to shortfall in funds. In 4.5 economic growth, despite the budget deficit, the Philippines experienced the economic growth during President Arroyo's presidency. The economy grew at rate of 4 indicates the positive expansion and development. The expanded value added tax or EVAT law in 2005 law was signed into the law. This law aimed to broaden the coverage of the value and added tax system and increase the tax revenue. It expanded the scope of goods and services to subject the VAT, effectively raising the tax base. In the Republic Act of 9337, the subject VAT energy products such as coal and petroleum, electricity and generation, transformation and distribution. The professional service were also taxed in February 2006 and the VAT tax rate was also increased from 10% to 12%. So, in the Republic of 9337 in the VAT energy products, the act was subjected in energy products such as coal, petrol, electricity, generation and transformation, and distribution by the value tax. This means that these energy-related goods and services became the subject to VAT, resulting in increase in their prices. The taxation of professional services in Republic Act of 9337 also imposed the taxes of professional services. This meant that the individual providing the professional services such as lawyers, doctors, accountants, and other professionals became liable to pay the taxes on their services. The increase of the tax rate is one of the significant changes introduced by the Republic Act of 9337 was the increase in the VAT tax rate from 10% to 12%. This meant that standard VAT rate applied to most goods and services by increased 2% points. In the time of President Benigno Aquino, he promised that no new law will be imposed and additional revenue will be have to come from adjusting existing taxes, and ventured into the adjustment of excise tax liquor and cigarettes known as sin tax form. So, during Benigno Aquino presidency, no new taxes. The government under President Aquino administration aimed to avoid imposing new taxes. So, recognizing the potential burden it could place on the individual and businesses. By adjusting the existing taxes instead of introducing new taxes, the focus was adjusting taxes to increase the revenue. This approach involved reviewing and modifying the tax rates and structure ensured that the fair and balanced tax system. The sin tax reform or the sin tax reform is simplify the target and exists tax on the sin product like liquor and cigarettes. This reform aimed to increase the tax rate of this product and discourage the consumption, promote public health, and generate additional revenue for the government. So, what is sin tax reform? So, the sin tax reform is primarily a health measure with a revenue implementation, but fundamentally, it is a good governance measure. It helps finances universal health care, which simplified the current exist tax system of alcohol and tobacco products. So, the sin tax reform is primarily considered a health measure with the revenue application, but it is also a good governance measure. So, the sin tax reform aims to address public health concern related consumption of alcohol and tobacco products. By increasing the tax rate, this product it aims to discourage their use and reduce the associated to health risks. The revenue application. This reform also had the revenue application to increase the tax rates on alcohol and tobacco. The products generate additional revenue for the government, which can be allocated towards the healthcare initiative and other public services. The sin tax reform considered a good governance measure as it promotes transparency, accountability, and efficient use of resources. This revenue generated from the increased tax is used to finance universal health care, ensuring that all citizens have access to essential healthcare services. In the Republic Act of 10351, the Sin Tax Law, Republic Act of 10351, initiated by the Philippines government, aimed to reform the taxation system of sin products such as alcohol and tobacco. The laws sought to increase the tax rates on this product to discourage the consumption, promote public health, and generate the additional revenue for the government. By increasing the government revenue as a result of the sin tax reform law, the government experienced an increase in revenue from the alcohol and tobacco excise taxes. The higher the tax rate on these products lead to greater tax collection, contributing the government funds. In the public health impact, the law object may not only generate the revenue but also the address of public health concern associated with the consumption of the alcohol and tobacco. By increasing the taxes, the law aimed to reduce the consumption of these products and medicated their adverse health effects. The fiscal sustainability or the increase of revenue from the alcohol and tobacco exists the tax help to support fiscal sustaining by providing additional funds for the government programs and initiatives including the healthcare, education, and other public services. Last is President Rodrigo Duterte. He promised that the tax reform, particularly in income taxes, as vowed to lower income the tax rate shouldered by the working Filipino. He proposed that the tax reform all seeks the limit of VAT exemption and increase existing taxes and petroleum product and automobiles. and the present income of the tax scheme of the country is the second highest in Southeast Asia. So the lowering the tax rates is President Duterte promised to lower the income tax to elevate the burden of working Filipinos. So as a part of the tax reform agenda, efforts were made and adjust income to tax bracket and reduce the tax rate in and individuals by limiting the VAT exemption and increasing exist taxes. The tax reform proposal also aimed to limit the value added tax or VAT. The exemption was an increase in taxes on the petroleum and product on automobiles. This was intended to broaden the tax base and generate additional revenue for the government. The present income tax scheme, or prior to the proposed tax reform, the income tax scheme is the Philippines considered one of the highest in the Southeast Asia. The aim is to reform to make the income tax system more progressive and competitive.